نستعين ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم. Continue inshallah ta'ala with the tafsir from Surah Al-Baqarah. We reached ayah number 83. So we'll make tafsir inshallah ta'ala of ayah number 83 to 86. Ayah number 83 to 86 from Surah Al-Baqarah. Ayah 83, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ أخذنا ميثاق بني إسرائيل لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا وذي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وقولوا للناس حسنا وأقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة ثم توليتم إلا قليلا منكم وأنتم معرضون. Roughly translates, and remember when we took a covenant from the children of Israel, saying, worship none but Allah, and be dutiful and good to parents, and to kindred, and to orphans, and al-masakeen, the poor, and speak good to people, and perform as-salah, and give zakah, then you slid back except a few of you, while you are backsliders. This ayah, again in the context of the ayat, of the verses about Bani Israel. Those who were before the Prophet ﷺ, and those who were at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and those who continue to turn away from the truth and following the Messenger ﷺ. And as we heard before, this was for them at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, because they ought to be the first to accept the message of the Prophet ﷺ, because they have a previous book. And they knew about the Prophet ﷺ before he was sent, and that's why they were waiting for him. So they ought to be the first. And also so it's a call for them and reminding them of the favors of Allah and the covenant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was taken from them, so that they ought to be the first to accept it. And also for this ummah, the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be warned from these people and not to follow the same path that they took, so that this ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not subject itself to the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the curse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the nations before that happened to it. Because there's nobody has any favors on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The only relationship between the human being and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is from the human being to be a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is nothing else. So no lineage, no status, not that he or she are from the lineage of this or that. There is no such a thing. It's by the ubudiyyah of the slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what saves the person from the hellfire and makes him among the people of Jannah. So reminding them of the covenant that was taken from them. And you will see that the same thing mentioned has been also taken from the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, and the verses are mentioned in more than one surah, that this is the same thing with regards to this ummah. So here the reminder, وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ, and remember, we said when إِذْ means that, and remember, أخذنا, we took ميثاق بني إسرائيل. الميثاق is al-ahd, is the covenant with heavy oaths that was taken from Bani Israel, the children of Israel. Israel is Yaqub alayhi salam, and his offspring, his lineage is Bani Israel. لا تعبدون إلا الله. The covenant was لا تعبدون إلا الله, do not worship none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is لا إله إلا الله. This is how La ilaha illallah is translated, right? So that nobody will come up with another meaning to it. La ta'buduna illallah. La ilaha illallah. That's a proof that ilah means the one to be worshipped. So La ta'buduna illallah, do not worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one to be worshipped. Very clear. And it's something that should be very obvious and very clear, because people, some of them, they take La ilaha illallah as there's no God but Allah, there's no Lord but Allah, which is true, but they would worship other than Allah. Or they would do an act of worship to other than Allah, and they don't find any problem with this. And they would continue to say La ilaha illallah. They didn't understand then the meaning of La ilaha illallah, because La ilaha illallah means there is no one to be worshipped except Allah. And what is worship? Anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered in the Quran or in the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Any order, then it's an act of worship. That means it's not supposed to be done to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And see how the sentence is when it starts with negation, and then there's an exception. This is the most exclusive, strong, exclusive sentence that you can ever find. لا تعبدون starts with negating, do not worship. When you start talking to someone by forbidding or saying, do not do anything except, right? This is very exclusive, right? It makes it very precise that what comes after except is the only thing. And it's different than you say, worship only Allah, right? If you say worship only Allah, mashallah, it means very good. But when you say do not worship anyone but Allah, definitely this is the strongest statement that you can say. We use that also with our children, right? Instead of telling them do this or do that, you say don't you ever do anything unless I tell you. You make it very clear that this is exactly one thing that you want from them. So لا تعبدون إلا الله, there is no one to be worshipped whatsoever except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High. So this is the first thing, which is of course the first obligation. The rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on everyone is for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to be worshipped alone and not to associate partners with Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, the right that comes right after the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to the creation of Allah, the rights of the parents. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. And the order of the words here starts with وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ, and by the parents. So the parents are very important. That's what needs to be for the person reminded of. Ihsanan, that means any ihsan, any goodness, that anything that comes under the category of goodness is to be given to the parents. And walidain, of course, meant here is for the father and the mother, and what comes above, to be kind to them, but mainly the immediate origin of the person. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, the most people that have rights on us after the rights of Allah. The right of the Prophet ﷺ is part of the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the obedience to the Prophet ﷺ is from the obedience of Allah. مَنْ يُطِعْ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ. Whoever obeys the Prophet ﷺ, he had indeed obeyed Allah, because the Prophet ﷺ does not speak from his desire, he speaks from revelation from Allah. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَذِي الْقُرْبَى, the kindred or the relatives, to be kind to them. And the qurba, or those who are close, this is what literally means, but it means here those who are related to you through the father or through the mother. Anyone that the relation is through the father or the mother, then it comes under this categories, the aunts and the cousins and the uncles and so on and so forth. So this is part of the, you can imagine, covenant, right? So this is not just the goodness of people. Many people, they don't deal with these relationships as deen. They deal with it as rewarding one another. Depends on the upbringing. Our culture, they are kind to the relatives, then I'm kind to the relatives. If our culture is not, they don't take care of these relationships, then the person will just fall into what the culture do. No, this is deen, this is covenant, and covenant is taken from a person. If they don't fulfill the covenant, what happens? They subject themselves to the punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ لَعَنَّاهُمْ وَجَعَلْنَا قُلُوبَهُمْ قَاسِيَةً يُحَرِّفُونَ الْكَلِمَ عَنْ مَوَاضِعِهِ. It was said either this is part of breaking the covenant or as a punishment for them. That as a result of them breaking the covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah cursed them and made their hearts hard, which is, again, as we said, this is the worst punishment that can happen to a person on the face of earth. It's not for that person to receive a lightning from the skies that he dies. The worst punishment is to have a heart that is hard, would be away from guidance. That person, even if he lived the most luxurious life, but when he dies, he will receive the everlasting punishment. There's nothing worse than this. And as a punishment, or in another meaning of the ayah, this an outcome of their breaking the covenant, is that they would change the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for those who change the words of Allah, alter it, and so on, and distort the meanings of it, it's two things. It's a punishment from Allah on them because of them breaking the covenant of Allah, so they would commit these form of injustices, and also it's the outcome of breaking the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to be kind to the relatives, this is a covenant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not something that is just depends on the goodness of the person or the goodness of the relatives. It has nothing to do with them being not kind or not kind. This is an order from one side only. There's no condition. You'll never find a condition in this that if they're kind to you, you're kind to them. Whoever someone is kind to him and he's not kind to them, this is very clear that it's evil. But it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the one that is supposed to be obedient to the orders of Allah. وَالْيَتَامَ and the orphans. And al-yatim, religiously, according to almost the majority of the ulama, maybe very few they said otherwise, but the yatim is the one that he lost his father before the age of puberty. The one that lost his father before the age of puberty. Once you reach the age of puberty, he's not yatim anymore. He's not an orphan anymore. So it's only before the age of puberty. So this is a deficiency in the human being, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed this for many reasons, and from the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of which is for people to do these good deeds. This is an act of worship, ubudiyyah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that people would, some people will enter Jannah because of taking care of the orphan. So the orphan becomes a great source of favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to those who would be kind to the orphan. وَالْيَتَامَ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ, the miskin is the one that is poor, that al-faqr or poverty askana, made him miskin, the literal meaning of it, or the root of it, someone that is not moving too much, right? So he's poor, that poverty made him not going all over the place, right? This is one of the signs of humbleness, or not humbleness in a good sense, but a person is weak, he is poor, he is in need. And the word miskin, if it's mentioned, it means the poor. Both faqir and miskin is mentioned under this meaning. If miskin and poor are both mentioned in the same context, like the verse of zakah for example, then there is a difference. One is in need more than the other. So then in that case, the faqir will be more in need than the miskin. They're both cannot make ends meet, if it's correct to say that, but the miskin is better off than the faqir. But both cannot make their ends meet at the end of the month or whatever. So to be kind to the miskin, to the poor, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. So now you have the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The rights immediately after that to the parents and those who are relatives and so on, and to the orphans and the poor, the human beings. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا, and say, وَقُولُوا, say, لِلنَّاسِ, to human being, right? And nas is everyone, every single human being. Husna, husna, like ihsan, say what is good. Say what is good. And this is a general statement that to say goodness to everyone. And as Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah, when he talked about this part of the ayah, he says to enjoin good and forbid evil, while having hilm and safh and af. It doesn't mean that to say goodness to people, that means you please them. You just say the things that they like, even if it's sinful, for example. It doesn't mean that when people are upset with you, that means you're not being kind to them. No, you can be extremely kind to someone, but he is choose to be disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, so he doesn't like what you say to him. So you still enjoy good and forbid evil, but you would forgive, you would pardon, you would say it in a nice way with gentleness, and always say what is good. And that is to everyone, linnas, to all people. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, and establish the salah, the most important act of worship. So the salah was also an order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the nations before. It doesn't have to be exactly the same way that we do the salah, but this was something that is the covenant taken from them. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ, establish the salah, وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةِ, and give the zakah, that's for Bani Israel also. ثم توليتم إلا قليلا منكم وأنتم معرضون. ثم توليتم. التولي is when a person turns his back away. So it's not just a matter of disobedience, a weakness that a person fell into a sin. No, turning away from the covenant of Allah. And what a worse crime than this. ثم توليتم إلا قليلا منكم, except قليلا, few among you, وأنتم معرضون, while you are turning away or sliding back, or as we heard, right? That while in the state of neglecting the matter whatsoever, they don't even care about it whatsoever, right? And that's why one of the nawaqid of Islam, one of the things that negates Islam, is to have completely i'rad an din Allah Azza wa Jalla. Is when a person neglect the deen of Islam totally. It's not someone that is committing sins or major sins, no. It's someone that ignores the religion all whatsoever. Right? He doesn't care about the religion. No salah, no nothing whatsoever. He has nothing to do with the religion. Right? This is one of the things that is negating one's Islam. It breaks one's Islam. In this total turning away, ignoring the deen of Islam totally. وأنتم معرضون. Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, he says, وإذا أخذنا ميثاق بني إسرائيل قل هذا من قسوتهم أن كل أمر أمروا به استعصوا فلا يقبلونه إلا بالأيمان الغليظة والعهود الموثقة. Just the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وإذا أخذنا ميثاق بني إسرائيل, took in the covenant, the heavy covenant from them, is by itself a sign of their harshness, and their hearts were very harsh and hard, because every single order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't just take it that easy. It has to be taken by the heavy oath, right? And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rose the mountain on top of them, all of that to take the covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is in their way, in their nature, to be rebellious, to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it has to be like heavy oaths like this. لا تعبدون إلا الله, هذا أمر بعبادة الله وحده ونهي عن الشرك به. Order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to worship Him alone, and forbidding shirk. And always the order of something means forbidding what's the opposite of it. And as we said that in La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, two orders with two forbidden things, and two orders with two things that negate it. Tawheed versus the shirk, and Sunnah versus the bid'ah. Either you follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ, or you innovate, you make up your own religion, not according to the way of the Prophet ﷺ, and that breaks the fact that a person would say Muhammadur Rasulullah. يقول وهذا أصل الدين. This is the origin of the deen. This is the foundation of the deen, to worship none but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فلا تقبل الأعمال كلها وإن لم يكن هذا أساسها فهذا حق الله تعالى على عباده. No action, no deed will be accepted unless a person would worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. This is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on His slaves. Then he said وبالوالدين إحسانا, which means أحسنوا بالوالدين إحسانا. This is as if in the Arab there is something that is as if the sentence is saying, and be kind to the parents with goodness. أحسنوا بالوالدين إحسانا. وبالوالدين إحسانا means do goodness to the parents while in goodness. Right? So it's all means of goodness. وهذا يعم كل إحسان. This encompasses every إحسان. Right? قولي وفعلي. Speech and action. Anything that is goodness, speech and actions. مما هو إحسان إليهم وفيه النهي عن الإساءة الوالدين. And within that order, of course, it's understood that it's forbidden to do the opposite, which is to be harmful or to do anything that is against what ihsan is. So al-isa'a أو عدم الإحسان والإساءة. What he's saying is, the order to be kind to the parents, that means that action has to be done. Right? An action, speech and action of goodness. The opposite of that is to say or to act in the opposite way. To harm them with your speech or with your action. Major sin, of course. Right? This is not it. What is forbidden also is to be negative, is not to do anything, to be idle. To not to harm or not to be kind to the parents. That's not permissible. You have to do something. Like if a person ignores his parents, he, far away from them, doesn't call them, doesn't do any goodness to them, but at the same time, he's not harmful to them. You just leave them alone. That's haram. That's not permissible. Because the order is to be kind to them. That means you have to do something. You have to do an action. Speech and action has to be good. That means it's part of one's deeds. So as he says here, that the opposite of that, which is two sins, to be harmful to them, which is worse of course, and also to be not goodness to them or not harmful, still it's not permissible. لأن الواجب الإحسان. Because what is wajib is to do, al-ihsan is to do means of goodness. وَالْأَمْرُ بِالشَّيْء نَهْيٌ عَنْ ضِدِّهِ. You mentioned here a principle, and that's the goodness of when we get to know the sayings of the people of knowledge. One of the generosity in their explanation of things is that they give you principles, right? And the benefit of this is that when we learn just the meanings of things, mashallah, this is good. But if something like it, similar to it, comes again, you might need still again another explanation. But when you give you a principle, the principle means that you would apply it in more than one incident, so it makes it easier for the person to learn many things in matters of the deen. So this is a principle. Al-amru bil-shay' nahyun 'an didd. If you're ordered to do something, right, that means you're forbidden from doing the opposite of it. This is a very easy to understand. So the order to be kind to the parents does not have to come in the same context. You are forbidden from harming them. It's already known by obvious statement here. And al-ihsan, he says, it has two opposites. The order is to make ihsan, to be kind, to do matters of goodness. And that means there's two opposites to it. Al-isa'a, وهي أعظم جرما, to be harmful, which is worse crime. وترك الإحسان بدون إساءة وهذا محرم. And to leave ihsan without harming them, it's still haram. Right? So this should be something very clear. لكن لا يجب أن يلحق بالأول. But then at the same time, it's not like the first case. The first case is far worse. وكذا يقال في صلة الأقارب واليتامى والمساكين. And the same thing is to be said with regards to the kindred or the relatives and the orphans and the miskin. Many of us, relatives, we think that we're being extremely kind to them by not harmful to them. But we don't do nothing to them. We don't call them, we don't see what they need. Because it's not just about calling too. If you're far away from them, it's not about just giving a call and that's it. It's to be there for them. To be, aware of what their situation is, if they need money, if they need help, if they need anything, you do something, you're always there to help them. So something that is not permissible is to ignore them, is to leave them, and never ask about them and so on. So part of the deen is to get to know your lineage, and that's why zina is haram. One of the wisdom behind zina forbidden, because when people commit zina, they have no relatives. It's all becomes no ties of relationship whatsoever. This is an act of worship. Covenant has been taken. So a blessing for someone to have a father and a mother and a family and cousins, this is a great ni'mah in this ummah, right? That many nations are deprived of this. They don't know anybody, right? So a great ni'mah to have lineage. This is a good thing. To know your lineage, to know who your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. This is a good thing, because through them, you'll get to know the cousins and faraway aunts, things like this. And these people, right, an act of worship is not to harm them, this is one thing, but also to do matters of goodness to them. So it's a good deed to search, find who your relatives are, right, and do something to be kind to them. Ask about them. Who are they? Are they good? Do they need anything? Sometimes people might not like this, but when they see that you're consistently doing that for the sake of Allah, you don't need anything from them, you just want to be there for them, this is an act of worship. So this is a very important benefit that we should change when it comes to the relatives and the orphans. We should look for them, and the same thing with the poor people. Then he says, وَتَفْصِيلُ الْإِحْسَانِ لَا تَنْحَصِرُ بِالْعَدْلِ. The details of al-ihsan, you cannot really count it. That's why the word al-ihsan is so general. بَلْ تَكُونُ بِالْحَدِّ كَمَا تَقَدَّمْ. So it's not something to be counted, but it has limits to it. Meaning that you don't do the opposite of it, you don't leave it. But if you want, what is al-ihsan? We can talk till tomorrow what is ihsan. You can just, anybody can come up with many good things that can be done. ثم أمر بالإحسان إلى الناس عموما. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered to do the ihsan and the goodness to all people in general. وَقُولُ لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. How is that? How to speak always matters of goodness to people. من القول الحسن. أمرهم بالمعروف, to enjoin good, to order them, to call them to what is good. ونهيهم عن المنكر, and to forbid them from doing evil. وتعليمهم العلم, and to teach them matters of knowledge. وبذل السلام, and to say salam to them. والبشاشة وغير ذلك, and to smile on their face. This is part of the speech, even if you don't say anything, but this is part of this. وغير ذلك من كل كلام طيب. Every word that is kind, then this is part of this. ولما كان الإنسان لا يسع الناس بماله أمر بأمر يقدر به على الإحسان إلى كل مخلوق فهو الإحسان والقول. This is an important benefit also. Well, not every human being can be benefiting to others with his wealth, right? Because it's only for those who have wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then ordered the believers or Bani Israel and so on to do something that is in the capacity of everyone, and that is to say what is nice, what is good. So nobody has an excuse that he would say, I don't have money to help my relatives, I don't have anything to help the poor and so on. To say what is nice and what is good, this is something that is in the capability of everyone. فيكون في ضمن ذلك النهي عن الكلام القبيح للناس حتى للكفار. So that this is in what is being mentioned, forbidden to say anything qabih, any words of insult or any bad words to everyone, even the kuffar. So it's not just to the believers, it's to linnas, to every single human being. And we have in the Prophet ﷺ the best example. He would not say any words of fuhsh or any words of evil or cussing or cursing or anything. It's always the nice and the kind words that a person would say, even to the disbelievers. ولهذا قال تعالى, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Do not argue with the people of the book except with what is the best. What is the best in everything. And then he says, وَمِنْ أَدَبِ الْإِنسَانِ الَّذِي أَدَّبَ اللَّهُ بِهِ عِبَادَهُ أَنْ يَكُونَ الْإِنسَانُ نَزِيهًا في أقواله وأفعاله غير فاحش ولا بذيء ولا شاتم ولا مخاصم بل يكون حسن الخلق واسع الحلم مجاملا لكل أحد. It's from the adab that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the believers, ordered the human being to be, is to purify oneself from one's speech and one's actions from anything that is fahish. Al-fuhsh usually is the words that has to do with relationship between man and woman. People always cuss and say things like that and mention women in their talks and things like that, or bad words, or cursing someone, or quarrelsome and arguing, but to be always having the best manners, forgiving others, spacious enough to be kind to others, مجاملا لكل أحد, to be kind to people even if you don't feel like it. Some people, they think it's against being truthful. That's not right. You might not feel like being kind to people. You're not in the mood, right? Do they have to see that? Do they have to see that on your face? One of the bad things, or one of the early generations of Islam, I believe, he stated that the meaning of which, one of the worst qualities of a person, if he is like in a good mood, he'll be very kind to you. But if he's not in a good mood, he's not kind to you. Where is that in the deen of Islam? This is not honesty and truthfulness. Right? This is against what good manners is. Good manners is, if a person is in good mood, it's easy. Everybody, when they're in good mood, they're kind to others. But what happens when you're not in a good mood? When you have stresses, when you have things, when you're not feeling good, and so on. Sometimes people are sick, they act very ignorantly. Or when they're stressed, or when they're busy, or whatever, then this is what we need to be watchful of. The person has to still be kind and to express goodness to others, even if he doesn't feel like it. Being patient, also when people would cause harm to you. This is what husn al-khuluq is. So again, the norm of the human being is that they reward one another. You come to me smiling and very pleasant and so on. The normal thing is that who's that will smile also and being kind. But what if you come when you're very angry and you say bad words and so on? Here's the test. Either a person will oppose that with the same thing, this is not what is appropriate, or to be still kind and to be patient. Why? Because this is the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all the matters of good deeds. Then he ordered them to establish the salah and to pay the zakat. And within the salah as he says, الأمر بالصلاة متضمنة للإخلاص للمعبود. It has the sincerity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the ibadah. And والزكاة متضمنة للإحسان العبيد. And the zakah has in it the kindness to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's still also part of what is being ordered. So then he says ثم بعد هذا الأمر بهذه الأوامر الحسنة التي بها نظر إليها البصير العاقل التي إذا نظر إليها البصير العاقل عرف أن من إحسان الله على عباده الأمر بها. So after these orders, if a person has the right vision, he would see that this is from the goodness or from the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unto his slaves, that he would order them with these great qualities. With someone of decency would think that these orders are burden. Imagine this is a covenant, and if they break the covenant, there is the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they turned away from it and they ignored it and so on. But when you look at these orders, if you have some decency, are these orders burdens, a burden thing, or something that is evil or difficult for them? This is favors from Allah that He ordered them these orders. It is the favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He ordered His slaves to be kind and to be generous. And what is a more better order than this? So how can then a person break the covenant of Allah when it's in such a beautiful way? So how can ثم توليتم على وجه الإعراض, turning away from this? So إلا قليل منكم, so that the fairness that is mentioned, except few of you. So a few of them, they did not turn away from this. Then briefly what comes after that. We should stop at this point and we won't take too much time, because there's another covenant taken from them. It has an incident at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So maybe we'll stop at this point with this ayah, and to be reminded with the different benefits that we heard, that has to have application in our life, that the deen of Islam is the orders from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not something to be taken lightly. This is a covenant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the nations before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us in the Quran how when they turned away from the covenant of Allah, they received the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this ummah, the same thing. If a person or a group of people or whatever, they turn away from the orders of Allah, the same way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is repeated. There's no any means of level of goodness just because the person says, I'm a Muslim. If he says, I'm a Muslim, and he breaks the covenant of Allah, he receives the same punishment. And to show the perfect way of life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the believers to do. This is a favor. We should look into the orders of Allah not as burden, but to look at it as favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He ordered us with these beautiful orders, that it's the perfect way of life. It's against one desire sometimes, then there's patience and seeking help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person falls short sometimes, he repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he continue to perfect oneself. And we would see that it's so perfect and it's so just, because you would want others to treat you in the same manner. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only ordered what is good, and that's why the principles to know this is very important, and how to avoid what is haram and how to do what is right. Definitely this is the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He chose for His slaves. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who apply what they hear. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Muhammad wa sallam.